All right, welcome back. It is, Thursday, the 24th of November. 59 years ago, it would have been a Sunday on the 24th, and this is the morning that sealed the fate of Oswald, ended any kind of trial or any kind of way of us finding out for real what was going on. And so to start off this, I'm going to get into the timeline, but first I wanted to start off with the assassination of Lee Oswald.
Here he comes. Now the prisoner wearing Mike's Faraday t-shirt.
Let me have it. I want it.
Being let out by Captain Fritz. There's the prisoner.
There is Lee. He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot. There's a man with a gun. Absolute panic. Absolute panic here in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters. The detectives have their guns drawn.
All right, that's one. So I want to go back here because you can actually see Ruby right before he shoots Oswald.
Let me have it. I want it.
Being let out by
And there he is. You see? He's been stalking Oswald for 2 days now. So, and even correcting the police on the, what was that called? The Free Cuba Committee or the Cuba, I don't even remember exactly the name. I have to go back and look at it again on my notes. But, so, Ruby is a mob guy. And like I said, there's different groups of people involved in this. They're all working together. They all have different assignments, I guess you could say. And it's people don't understand how the mob and the CIA and the elements, right-wing elements of the FBI and right-wing elements of the military and right-wing elements of the Secret Service and right-wing elements of the police department, with Cubans and, guns for hire mercenaries working for the CIA, how they could all work together in one big coordinated cabal. And it's not that difficult. I mean, literally, everyone has their assignment. Okay? So the Secret Service is going to remove the layers of protection. The military is probably going to work on communications and remove the other group that should have come up from San Antonio. The FBI is going to filter witness reports and do other things like lose documents, things like that. The CIA on the upper level is going to cleanse themselves of any kind of connections between Oswald and anybody else that might get caught. On the lower end of that, you're going to have, CIA case handlers, I guess you could say, like Hunt and Bishop. They're going to be handling their groups of people underneath them. Many of those groups of people may not even know they're part of it, or may not know there's other groups involved. It could be that compartmentalized. You could literally run something like that. Then you've got the mafia. They're going to be supplying safe houses, transportation money, and then Ruby. Ruby is their guy in the police department. Because once Oswald doesn't get killed, okay, he makes it out alive, gets arrested, and he's not killed, then they've got another problem. The CIA is putting pressure on the mafia. Who do you have there? And they've got Ruby. Okay, they got Ruby by the balls. Another thing is that the government's got Ruby by the balls. Ruby has been paying off his debt to the IRS for his two clubs for years. For years. If you look at his tax records and you look at his debts that he owes the IRS, I think it's something close to like $5,000-$10,000. When it gets closer to this date, like October, November, all of a sudden those debts can almost completely disappear. That's a payment in kind there, okay? And one thing you want to understand about running an agent, the FBI, the CIA, is you never want someone who's a walk-in who's a patriot. You always want a hook on them, okay? Something you can always manipulate them, because a patriot can change his mind. A walk-in can change his mind and said, okay, I've seen enough, I don't want to do any more. Once you get someone working for you as an asset, so you spent that time developing that, you're going to want a hook. Everybody has a hook. Whether it's money, drugs, prostitutes, whatever the hook is, whatever the guy wants. Okay? That way you can whip out that card, that don't walk away card. I'm sorry, yeah. I know you've said you've had enough, but we're not finished yet. You can't walk away yet. You do this one last thing, and then we'll let you walk away. Okay? So Ruby is the guy they've got. They probably got other guys inside the police department. If you listen to the interviews, and we're going to read through interviews of policemen in the Dallas Police Department, first thing they all say is, oh, I thought it was, an older policeman getting close to retirement that was disgruntled or upset about Tippett getting shot and decided to kill, Oswald because he killed Tippett. Something like that. So, and another reason, you have to understand is, why was Tippett killed? Think about it. Why was Tippett killed? Oswald was supposed to die in the Texas theater by the police, but there were too many witnesses, okay? So, one of the reasons Tippett was killed is because he was associated with Oswald, he was associated with Ruby, but also it was to inspire other policemen to take out Oswald. Okay, then they could back off and deny all that it was just some angry policeman. So here's Ruby. He's stalking Oswald. He's under a lot of pressure. Maybe the mafia has made a couple of phone calls to Ruby and said, hey, your brother is really easy to get to. Your sister's up in Chicago here. It'd be unfortunate if she had an accident, or if your brother had an accident, or your nephew had an accident. So we want you to do this, or, your sister's going to fall down a flight of stairs, or shoot herself in the back of or your brother's going to shoot himself in the back of the head with a shotgun. Okay, that's how things work there. They put maximum pressure on Ruby. Okay, this is why he's freaking out. He's crying on the phone. He's going to his rabbi and crying. He's under maximum pressure. Get Oswald at all costs. And you see him stalking Ruby. Ruby is stalking Oswald the whole weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But he's chickening out. Okay? This is the one where he gets him. Now, a lot of people said, hey, how could he be stalking Oswald? Oswald was an hour late coming out. He would have been waiting an hour there, and then he ran, to send money to one of his strippers. Well, if you think about it, okay, he got a phone call, and then he got another phone call, because this is what George Sanders says. He got two phone calls, and then he got a phone call, didn't say anything about it, got another phone call, and that's when he said, I need to go downtown to wire some money to my strippers. Now, think about it. Where he was living, there were plenty of other Western unions that he could have wired the money from. But instead, he insists on going downtown. Okay? And then there's stories about his little poodle he left in his car and all these kinds of things. I don't know. Who knows why when people are under stress and pressure, they do strange things. Okay? But if you think about it, he sent the stripper the money first because he knew that once he did his little deed, he wasn't coming back. She wasn't going to get any money, and he's like, well, I'm going to be in prison anyway. I might as well send her the money. Had he ever sent his strippers money before? Who knows? But think about it. You got to think about it logically. He's under pressure. Get Oswald before he speaks at all costs. Okay? So he's stalking Oswald. He's looking for an opportunity, and he takes this opportunity. Now here's another, I think this is a different camera angle here. We'll take a look at this one and see what we got. You see, it's not going to be a problem for him to have his gun ready, because see, all the other guys have their cameras ready, and then there's different people coming out saying, okay, he's coming down, here he comes, he's coming down, like that. And there he is, one shot. I find it interesting that Oswald gets shot in the abdomen one time with the bullet running around, and he dies. But yet Connolly gets 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 wounds, and he survives. So I find that interesting. All right, we'll keep going.
Basement floor of the Dallas
and then there's
City
utter
Hall,
chaos.
And that's a scuffle on the basement floor. It seems to concern photographers.
He has been shot. Oswald has been shot.
Lee Oswald.
So you can see the other policeman here. He's grabbed the gun. He's twisted away from him. They're trying to get Oswald. The other policemen are trying to keep the newsman back.
Police are pulling.
It's utter chaos.
Switch now to Bob Hoppacker down in the basement of the courthouse, who is close to the scene. Go ahead, Bob.
And you can't understand the complete psychological terror this creates across the nation. Okay? Because it's bad enough that Kennedy got killed. The president's dead. While they're having Kennedy's funeral, they cut to news that Oswald's being transferred to the county jail. And then this happens live nationwide. That's a perfect remedy for psychological warfare against everyone in the country. And also to anyone that would think that to come up against whoever is behind this, look, this is what we did. On live TV, we killed the assassin and silenced him. Do you think that if you speak out, we're not going to be able to get to you? If we can get to this guy on live TV, if you speak out and you know something, and you know who we are, and you know what we did, you don't think we can get to you also? It's psychological warfare, people. And it works. Anyway, so we're back into the timeline. So I want to apologize for such a long intro, but you know that video is so good, and I just wanted to go through the kind of an introduction to the timeline, and this we'll get into this timeline. I'm sorry it took like 5 or 6 episodes, but that's just the way it is. I did want to say something. I've been posting my videos at various places, and I've been posting on one forum, and I swear it's like a bunch of little fascists on there for some reason. So I opened my own forum, okay, and post my own questions, and people come into my forum, my classroom, and start telling me how to run my classroom, saying I just can't post videos. I need to post a synopsis and tell them what it's about, and we think this is click for play. I don't even know how to set that up, people. I'm putting this information out there. If I wanted to, monetize it, I don't even know how to do that. And I doubt I'm going to get any kind of monetization on what? I've got like 2-3 people watching. So chill out, little fascists. It's not your classroom, it's mine. I created the classroom. In order to participate in the classroom, you've got to do the assignment, which is watch the video, look at what my presentation. It's no different than if I'm sitting there doing a slide presentation. All of a sudden, you got people standing up screaming, no, You shouldn't be doing a slide presentation. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. That's rude. It's not your classroom. It's not your presentation. You're welcome to go do something someplace else. But hey, welcome to America, folks. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I don't have to follow the rules made up in somebody's head. Okay? All right. So there you go. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But it's just shocking that people that say they're for the truth and for freedom can be such little fascists and say you have to do this, you have to do that. Bullshit. It's America. I can do what the fuck I want. Okay? If you don't like it, go back to China, go back to Russia. This is just the way I feel about it, okay? Anyways, my video, my presentation. You're welcome to make comments about the presentation, but if you're not even going to watch the presentation, shut the fuck up. Anyway, so at the beginning of the timeline, I'm going to mention this again. I'm going to mention it again, or I mentioned it before. I'm going to mention it again. So, was Oswald a genius or a complete nut? Okay, if Oswald was a Marxist communist living in right-wing Dallas, conservative Dallas, it'd be like a Nazi living in Moscow trying to kill, Stalin. Doesn't make much sense now, does it? He would stick out like a sore thumb. Okay? Again, and that's the whole premise of the Warren Commission's conviction, their conviction of Oswald. He was a Marxist communist revolutionary. He killed Kennedy to gain fame, to, stop him from going after Fidel Castro, which on the surface kind of makes a little bit of sense. But then again, if he did that, why wouldn't he espouse his views in front of the whole world when he had the news media in front of him on Friday and Saturday? Doesn't make much sense. And another thing, if he's this Marxist revolutionary left-wing communist, okay, so he shot at Walker. He shot at General Walker, who's this right-wing neoconservative, Birch Society, John Birch Society. Why would you shoot Kennedy if Kennedy was the one that fired Walker, okay, and put him in a mental institution? So that's completely opposing political views there. Are you shooting both ways? Is this what you're doing? Doesn't make much sense. Think about it. It'd be like shooting the guy who killed Hitler. Doesn't make much sense. Anyway, so on the timeline, one of the first things is it says 7:10 a.m. Oswald oversleeps 10 minutes past his wake-up alarm. Lee Harvey Oswald gets out of bed after a restless night and gets ready for work. Before he leaves the house, he takes off his wedding ring and leaves it in a cup on top of the Marina's dresser. He takes $170 out of his wallet and leaves it with his wedding ring. Now, there's a couple of things there. Think about it. It's your most important day. You're a Marxist, communist, revolutionary who's about to put a death blow to the capitalist system and the capitalist president, and you're going to, this is your day. Are you going to sleep late? Are you going to oversleep and miss your alarm? No, you're probably going to go in early to get all set up and ready. But no, he sleeps late. Okay? Doesn't make much sense. When is he putting together this rifle? Okay? If Marina is there and Mrs. Payne is there, how is he putting together this rifle? At night? In the morning? While they're doing breakfast? It doesn't make much sense. Another thing he does, he puts his wedding ring there. A lot of people are saying, well, he left his wedding ring because he knew he wasn't coming back. Well, it could also be that Marina told him that, no, you're too unstable. We're not getting back together right now. We're going to see how things work with this job, and you can keep coming over, but we'll see how things go. And there's two other things. Marina's pregnant with a baby. Okay? Not too many men are going to go out and ruin their life when they have a child expected on the way. They're going to work on ways of trying to preserve their marriage and keep their job and, be there for the baby. He also has another daughter that's, 1 or 2 years old already. So who's going to go commit suicide when you have a family to take care of like that? And especially got a child on the way. And another thing about Marina is she's not going to kick him out and get rid of him immediately because she needs him. She can't stay in the country because she is a temporary citizen. She's not even a citizen, excuse me. She's on a temporary visa. And, as soon as he goes to jail, she's going to be thrown in prison. Or, thrown out of the country. So if they get divorced, she's going to be deported and thrown out of the country. It doesn't make any much sense. Okay? And then also think about it. He's trying to impress his wife. Look, I'm a good provider. I know the kids need things. I know you need a dress. I know you need things. So here's $170. That's a lot of money back then when you're making $1 something an hour. And where did he get $170? Think about that. So here's his paycheck. Right here, for $108. If he's making, let's see, that's most likely a 2-week check right there. So out of 108, 38 divided by 2 times 52 divided by 12, he's bringing in about $234 a month. And he just gave her $170. Okay, he just gave her 75% of that. That's a lot of money. That's not I'm going to go kill myself. There's no more money coming. It doesn't make much sense, does it? Again, $108. That's a 2-week paycheck right there. All right, we'll keep going on here. Now, Oswald leaves his wallet at the Payne house. There's also a wallet found at the Tippit shooting. There's also a wallet found on himself that has the Alex Heidel ID. There's also 2 other wallets that are found in Mrs. Payne's garage. So we're talking 5 different wallets. What kind of man has 5 different wallets? Doesn't make much sense. They really play down the 5 different wallets in the Warren Commission, but it's there. All right. So about 7:45 or so, 7:40, Oswald goes over to Wesley Frazier's house and places a small package in the back of his truck. And we're going to start reading. This is where we're going to start reading testimony here. All right, but first we're going to play a couple of videos here. All right, now this was a mock trial they did back in the 70s or 80s, and it basically they've taken a lot of the witnesses and they put them up on this trial. It's not everyone because they're not it's not mandatory to show up. It's people that volunteered, and also people who wanted. All right, so this is Bill Wesley Frazier at this trial.
Mr. Bugliosi, call your first witness.
Government calls Buell Frazier.
Come on, if you would, please, sir. If you come forward, raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give in the proceedings before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Take a seat and witness stand, please.
Be seated.
Mr. Frazier, do you reside here in Dallas?
Yes.
Directing your attention way back to October of 1963, were you employed at the Texas School Book Depository building located at the corner of Elm and Houston Streets in Dallas?
Yes, sir.
What type of work did you do there?
Order filler.
Order filler of books?
Yes, sir.
In mid-October of that year, 1963, did a man named Lee Harvey Oswald start to work at the Book Depository building?
Yes, sir.
And did you learn that Mr. Oswald's Russian-born wife, Marina, was living with a lady named Ruth Payne about half a block from where you lived at 2515 West 5th Street?
Yes, sir.
Did you learn from Mr. Oswald that he was living by himself in Dallas?
Yes, sir, I did.
At the beginning of Mr. Oswald's employment at the Book Depository Building in mid-October of 1963, did he ask you if you would drive him to his wife's home in Irving on Friday evenings after work and return with you on Monday mornings?
Yes, sir, he did.
And you agreed to do this?
Yes.
Driving to and from work, would you and Mr. Oswald talk a lot?
No, sir, he didn't talk very much.
What about at work? Would you see him talk to fellow workers, or would he be pretty much to himself?
He stayed pretty much to himself. He was a loner.
Okay. Now,
All right. So think about that. Okay? So the Warren Commission likes to paint Oswald as this, violent, fanatical, Marxist communist revolutionary. Don't you think that he would be trying to recruit or at least espouse his views, at least on Frazier, if not other co-workers? Okay? Because, like I said, there's kind of a logical order of things, of how people work, okay? And usually it starts off like this. They have internal thoughts, okay? Say this box represents internal thoughts. That, hey, I don't believe this or I believe that. And they may not ever express those to other people, okay? Then they start to take action on it. They either start doing some reading on the internet, reading books, things like that. Third, they start to take even further action by joining maybe a local discussion group on the internet, posting things, maybe even going to in-person meetings. Back in these days, it would be in-person meetings. Okay? And then, fourth, they would start to work and discuss these things outside their group, outside their discussion boards, with other people, trying to get ideas. And then fifthly, they would try to recruit people to their ideas and, win people over. You see this in Christianity and Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses. You see people like this all the time. They become salesmen. Okay? Then, there's another group of people, not everyone, that take even further action. That, we'll say this is some kind of, we'll stick with communism, okay? So he's tried to recruit people to communism, and he's got a few recruits, maybe even becoming a leader. Then, the next action is, if you believe all the revolutionary talk that they're saying he was espoused in, you're going to take some kind of militant action by turning it into violence against whatever opposition that you think that's out there. And in this case, it'd be the President of the United States. So, you see none of those things in Oswald. None of the in-between stages. He jumps from inner thoughts to violent revolutionary, according to the Warren Commission, and misses all the other steps. Now that is possible, but how many times, especially like in America, have we had shooters that shot up a Walmart, shot up a gay club, shot up a shopping center, and they were out there on the internet espousing their views, attacking people on the internet, attacking people in public, reading things on the internet, checking out books in the library, and then, the people that knew them sometimes would say, yeah, he was a nut, or, oh, he was so quiet, I didn't even know he even thought like that. So, we could have a case like that, but that's what people on the internet now. We didn't have the internet back then. So Oswald only had one outlet, and that was on the streets with groups of people and co-workers. And you see him on the streets in New Orleans, you see him on the radio and the TV in New Orleans, but in Dallas, he's completely silent. Now, is New Orleans much more liberal than Dallas? Maybe in some sense, but basically it's about the same. So why isn't Oswald passing out Free Cuba Committee yellow pamphlets on the street corner in Dallas. He got his job in New Orleans in May and was fired in July. So we're talking 2 months. He had worked before the assassination over a month. So there was no reason, and he'd already been on the radio, he'd already been on TV, he'd already been passing out bills, already got into the point of trying to infiltrate a right-wing Cuban group, already gotten into a fight, already gone to court. Why wouldn't he be doing the same thing in Dallas? Why is that? And again, we'll take it back. You don't think he's going to be, talking to Frazier? So, Frazier, isn't it awful the way they treat us as workers? Isn't it awful how little we get paid? And I bet the owner of this place is a multi-millionaire rich guy. He's a right-wing fascist Nazi. We should all unionize together and, fight for higher wages. They don't even have us as permanent employees. We're just temporary employees. What's up with that? We get no benefits. We do all the work. The owners reap the profits from our hard sweat. Where is that? It's not there. Doesn't make much sense, does it?
Mr. Frazier, was there one time that Mr. Oswald asked you to drive him back to Irving that was not on a Friday?
Yes, sir, he did.
Was that on November the 21st, 1963, a Thursday?
Yes, sir.
The day before President Kennedy was assassinated?
Yes, sir.
And what did you say to him?
He asked me, could he ride home? And I said, sure, you can ride home with me anytime. And then I thought, and I said, well, why do you want to go home with me tonight? And he told me that he was going home to get some curtain rods for you.
Now, you hear what he said? He said, you could ride with me anytime. And I'm going to go over a testimony showing that a couple of the school book depository employees would see Frazier and Oswald nearly every day riding together and arriving together. So to sit there and say it was that one day doesn't make much sense, does it? I don't know why he's doing that, but there he is.
For his apartment from Miss Payne.
Okay, so that evening after work, you brought Mr. Oswald back to Irving, is that correct?
That's correct.
The following morning, Friday, November the 22nd, 1963, did anything unusual happen while you were eating breakfast?
And again, he's the only one that said anything about the curtain rods. Okay? He's the only one that's saying this story. There's curtains already in his Oswald's room on Beckley. If Oswald wanted other curtains, there's plenty of stores downtown that he could go get curtain rods and take them home on the bus. Okay? Oswald was going to supposedly the firing range in General Walker's house on the bus with his rifle. You don't think he can carry curtain rods on the bus? Doesn't make much sense. Wesley Frazier is the only one saying this. Why? Think about it. It's two things. Wesley Frazier is the only one saying that it was the only day that, Lee asked him to come home on a Thursday when he never did before. And it was the only day that, Lee talked about the curtain rods, carrying them in the paper bag. But Frazier is the only one who says this. No one else knows or says this.
Yes, sir, he did. Lee looked, he had come down to my home and he looked in the kitchen window.
Okay, he hadn't done that before?
No, sir.
Eventually you and he got into your car?
Yes, sir.
When you got into the car, did you notice that he'd put something in the back seat?
Yes, sir. As I was getting in the car, I noticed a package on the back seat.
Did you ask him what it was, and if so, what did he say?
Yes, sir, I did ask him, and he says, that's the curtain rods that I was going to pick up from Miss Payne.
Okay. Once you arrived at the book depository building that morning, where did you park your car?
In the employee parking lot.
As I understand it, when the two of you got out of the car, he started walking ahead of you to the entrance of the building. Is that correct?
That is correct.
As he was walking ahead of you, was he carrying the bag that had been on the back seat?
Yes, sir.
Did you recall how he was carrying the bag?
Yes, sir. He was carrying it parallel to his body.
Okay, so he carried the bag right next to his body on the right side.
Yes, sir, on the right side.
Was it cupped in his hand and under his armpit? I think you've said that in the past.
Yes, sir.
That's
Mr.
leading the
Frazier, is it
witness.
true that you paid hardly any attention to this bag?
That is true.
So the bag could have been protruding out in front of his body and you wouldn't have been able to see it. Is that correct?
That's true.
See, they're trying
Mr.
to-
Frazier, I understand you watched the...
See, they're trying to make it that Frazier wasn't really paying that much attention, so it could have been longer, could have been protruding out, could have held a rifle. And again, I've gone over that. If Oswald had gone to the shooting range, or the firing range, and gone to General Walker's with the rifle on the bus, he was carrying it in something, probably the blanket. Why wouldn't he carry the rifle in the blanket to Wesley Frazier's? He left the blanket back at Mrs. Payne. He puts it in this flimsy piece of paper, that could easily be broken, would also leave his fingerprints. It doesn't make much sense. I went over this earlier. Maybe we'll keep going.
The presidential motorcade from outside the front door of the book depository building. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you heard the rifle shots.
Yes, sir.
How many did you hear?
3.
After the shooting that afternoon, was there a roll call of employees to see if all the employees had returned?
Now he skips over this because in other testimony, and we'll read, Frazier hears one shot, and it sounds like it's coming from the right, which if you're facing out of the school book depository, here we'll go back to, So if Frazier is here, and it comes from his right, this is going to be his right arm. The shot's coming from this direction. Then he hears the other 2 shots come from this direction. So he hears the shot, which is this shot right here, that everyone is noticing. He hears a shot which hits Kennedy in the throat, in the front, from the grassy knoll. All right, let me find my spot here.
To the building?
Yes, sir, there was.
Were all employees present at the time of the roll call, or was anyone missing?
Everyone was present except Mr. Oswald.
He was the only...
And that isn't correct either. Just remember, Wesley Frazier is a temp employee. Okay? He's not the HR. So he would have no idea. He'd only been there a month. Well, no, 2 months. He doesn't know all the employees there. They're office workers that he doesn't work with. So he would have no idea if all the employees were there, because there are other employees that are supposed to be at the other warehouse, okay? And it's my understanding there's probably 5 to 10 people that are missing.
The only employee who was missing, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. No further questions.
Spence?
Well, Mr. Frazier, do you feel like you've just been at the racetrack?
Well, sometimes, you can be there, and, it's an enjoyable experience.
Shall we take our time and see if we can get some facts out here? You and I have never talked together, have we?
No, sir.
It's the first time you and I have ever met, isn't it?
That's correct.
You've gone over your testimony in some detail with Mr. Bugliosi.
I've talked with Mr. Pelosi a couple of times, but not in any in-depth.
Mr. Spence, I know...
Just a minute. If
Mr.
you're going to
Spence-
make any address anywhere, Mr. Bugliosi, you'll stand on your
Okay,
feet.
Mr. Spence,
Most
my name
Mr.
is pronounced Bugliosi. The G is silent. I've told you this several times.
No, it-
I know it's difficult, but I try to do it, okay?
That's the only thing that's
An
silent
Italian
about
G
Mr.
before L
Bugliosi,
silent.
Your Honor,
Please,
is the
jury will
G.
disregard that sidebar remark for any purpose at all.
Well, all right. Now, you were the FBI tried to get you to admit that this package that he was carrying was longer than the package you saw. Isn't that right?
Well, they
Now,
had
isn't
me.
that right, sir?
Let him finish his answer, please, counsel.
Yes, sir.
Well, they had me to make an imaginary bag in my mind. Now, as I stated
No,
previously,
just a minute. The
Let him
question.
finish his answer, please.
I understand.
As I stated previously, I only glanced at the package because the man had never lied to me, so therefore I didn't have any doubt to believe what he said was in the package.
And you believe that the bag that you saw that he was carrying was one that he could put under his arm and carry in his palm. Isn't that true?
Yes, sir, that is true.
And that's longer than the rifle would be if it was broken down. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
Now, you didn't think that Lee was a madman, did you?
No, sir, he didn't give me that impression.
He seemed to you to be a kind of a nice fella, didn't he?
Yes, sir, he was a individual that was nice to children.
And he liked his children?
Yes, sir, he did.
When he talked about his children, I think you said that he chuckled.
Yes, he did.
And he was concerned about his family and his wife, wasn't he, sir?
Yes, he was.
And you liked him, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I thought he was a very nice person. He always treated me nice.
Now, you heard some shots, didn't you?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you thought that those shots came from the direction of the railroad, didn't you?
Yes, sir, the knoll there.
Now, let's get this kind of figured out, you and me, for the jury.
You notice how Bugliosi just blew through that. Don't want the jury to know that.
Now, here's the Texas School Book Depository right here, isn't it?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And you thought the shots came from another direction, didn't you, sir?
I thought they came from the knoll over here.
Well, let's just get down here. If you could just step down a minute, and let's take this marker and put an X where you think the pictures were, or the shots were.
Okay. As you can see, as we already said, this was Texas School Book Depository, which is at Houston and Elm Street. And a little side street here that ran down here, and it was a dead end. Well, right down in this area here was a knoll, as they call it there.
A grassy knoll.
Yes.
Just write grassy knoll.
Okay.
Okay, and just put an X from where you thought the shots were coming from.
Okay.
You just did
Bingo.
that. Thank you. And I don't know what exhibit number.
Wow. Bingo. Almost exactly. So there is Zapruder right there. He's got it. He's right on it. Think about it. If you're not prepared for a shot, and then a shot happens, can you really target exactly where it's at? You'll get a general area, but bingo, he gets right on top of it. Right in here. That's where it's at. Ear witness, folks. Ear witness.
Number this is, but we'll take care of that with the court's counsel's permission a little later. Would you just write your name up there, Mr. Frazier?
Okay.
So we know it was you that put it there. Thank you for your help and your assistance. That's all the questions I have, sir.
Frazier, if you would, please, if you'd step down. Thank you.
Wow.
The government recalls Buell Frazier, Your Honor.
If you would, please, if you'd come forward. I can assure you it's not going to take this near as long as it did last time, Mr. Frazier. Just have a seat. You're the same person that testified here earlier this morning, are you not?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Frazier, I'm sorry I had to call you back to the witness stand. Exhibit 21A, we have that on the screen now. Mr. Frazier, this fellow here in the doorway of the book depository building, do you know who he is?
Yes, sir.
And who is he?
That's Billy Lovelady.
And who's Billy Lovelady?
Billy Lovelady was a employee of Texas School Books.
Okay. Were you standing near Billy at the time that photograph was taken?
Yes, sir. I was standing back up in the shadows there where you can't see me, up several steps back. But I was in the shadows and he was standing down in front of me.
And this is when the presidential limousine was driving by.
Yes, sir.
Does Mr. Lovelady resemble Lee Harvey Oswald?
No, sir, except one thing. They both had kind of a high forehead.
Right.
But one was short and stocky, which Billy was. And Lee Harvey Oswald was more of a thin type frame.
You speak in the past tense. Billy has passed away.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
So, here's the problem with the prayer man. They're saying that prayer man is back here, And there's Wesley Frazier saying he's back there also. So don't you think he would see Oswald right there? Oh yeah, Oswald couldn't have been the shooter because he was standing beside me in the doorway. That's not a very big doorway. But let's take a look at that again. See, there's the doorway right there. Wesley Frazier is saying he's back there. People were saying that there's a guy back here who's prayer man. Wesley Frazier would be standing right beside prayer man. So it's obviously not Oswald. Just making a point there. Besides that, Dealey Plaza, UK, and all those guys there are great. They got good stuff. All right, let's see. Okay, there we are. We're going to finish this one up.
And you student, just a minute, Mr. Frazier. You may have some additional cross-examination.
You're way back in the shadows, you say?
Yes, sir. I'm back in the shadows there.
How far back, sir?
Oh, there's, I would say 3 or 4 steps back up there in the shadows.
Like about the distance between, say, you and me?
No, sir.
A little closer?
A little closer.
Like this distance?
Come right about in there, sir.
And you recall these 23 years later that Mr. Lovelady was standing in front of you at that precise moment?
All right, so did you see that? All right, let's back that up a little bit. They should have got closer there.
There, sir.
All right, let me go back a little further.
Sir.
A little closer?
A little closer.
Like this distance?
Come right about in there, sir.
All right, so back it up just a little bit.
A little closer.
Like this distance?
Come right.
All right, you see that? That's a good 6-7 feet right there. That's the distance of a human being. You could put 1, 2, 3, 4 people there. Okay? If Wesley Frazier was that far back, and Billy Lovelady is standing here, and this is Prayer Man, if this is Oswald, Wesley Frazier is going to see Oswald as one of these 3 or 4 people between him and Billy Lovelady. So Oswald wasn't there. He was on the second floor, just like he said, drinking a Coke. Anyway.
Right about in there, sir.
And you recall these 23 years later that Mr. Lovelady was standing in front of you at that precise moment, about 4 steps in front of you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is.
Have you ever said that to anybody in the world prior to today?
I don't know where anyone asked me that or not.
Yeah, but my question is, did you ever tell that to anybody in the world prior to today?
Not that I know of, sir.
But you did tell that to Mr. Bugliosi with the G silent, didn't you?
Well, I answered his question a while ago, sir.
Yes. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. You may step down.
All right, so that's a mock trial there. They rented a courtroom, I guess you could say. This judge is a retired judge, I believe, or he could have been still active. I'm not sure. Everybody knows Vincent Bugliosi did a great job with the Helter Skelter, with the Charlie Manson murders. This guy here, I can't remember his name, but he was a famous lawyer. Won many trials, and I don't think he even lost a trial ever. I think his name was Spence, I believe. But good testimony, good stuff there. It's kind of a good way to start off. So I'm going to kind of do it like this from now on. If I can find video on a witness, we're just going to do, can't do all of them, but we'll try to do at the scene video, and if not, maybe later a testimony video, and then we'll go into their statement. I think that's going to be kind of give you a good visualization of who we're talking about here. Now, this is the affidavit of Wesley Frazier on the 22nd, the day of the assassination. So these are really good because people say stuff. They're not influenced by other people or the news. they say what they saw, whether right or wrong, but they say it. And then later on, after they've read things, people have told them this, well, did you see that? And then they thought about it, then they start to adjust their memory. And it does happen. People do adjust their memory. It's just part of being human. You go back and rethink things, and you see things on the news, and I guess that couldn't have been like that. I guess it had to be 3 shots because that's what the government's saying, you know. But the initial witness testimony is the best. I always like that. And like I said, you got that layer. You've got people coming forward, talking to the police, talking to the sheriff, and then maybe talking to the FBI or the Secret Service. And then later, the FBI is coming back as part of the commission and re-interviewing them. And then later, maybe the commission is interviewing them, and you've got their lawyers up there who've read over. And like I said, the Warren Commission, they cherry pick the ones that fit the scenario they're looking for, that Lee Oswald was the lone assassin. But anyway, let's get into his little statement here. And there's Mary Rattan. I don't know exactly who she was, but she was a notary in the county. I don't know if she's a government employee or what, but you'll see a majority of these statements are typed up by her. Okay? And anyway, so here we go. Let's see if I can blow this up a little bit. Zoom. Let's see. All right, now it looks like there's some printing missing, so we may miss some things, but so be it. All right, so it says, who, after being by me duly sworn on oath deposes says. And what that statement means is I'm a trusted notary public, and what I am putting down typed up is actually what this person said, because they didn't have tape recorders that many back then, so you had to trust that this is what the person said. So Wesley Frazier either wrote this down and she retyped it, or she was typing it while he was saying it to her. All right, so he says, I work at the Texas School Book Depository, corner of Elm in Houston. I have worked there since September 13th. You see, he's only been there like a month before Oswald. I filled orders about a month ago. I met Lee Harvey Oswald at work. That would have been approximately the 22nd of October. I figured he must be a new man. I walked up to him and asked if he was Lee. I figured he must be Lee, as my sister had told me about him. So you remember Mrs. Payne had heard from her neighbor, who was Buell Wesley Frazier's sister, that her brother had gotten a job at the Texas School Book Depository, and she asked if they were hiring. She said she didn't know, but he gave her the number, and then she called and made an appointment for Lee to go work there or go be interviewed. So that's how Wesley Frazier had heard about him, okay? Let's see. I asked him if he would like to ride back and forth with me, as I knew his wife lived with Ruth Payne near my house, and he said he would, but only on weekends, as he had an apartment of his own in Oak Cliff. And you think about that. Wouldn't that sound kind of odd? Your wife is over in Irving, but you're living in Oak Cliff, but you're only going back to see her once a week. My first question would be, Lee, why are you and your wife getting a divorce? Why are you living separately from her, and your child? That would be my first question, nosy me, but that's just me. Anyway, we'll keep going here. We're going to finish a statement, then that'll be it. Oh gosh, now I lost my spot. After that, every Friday evening, Lee would ride home with me and then ride back to work with me on Monday morning. He has only rode home from work with me on Fridays, but yesterday morning, Thursday, November 21st, 1963, Lee told me that he wanted to ride home with me that evening. See, remember I was telling you there were things that Lee does that makes him look guilty, and things he does that make him look totally innocent. So this is one of the things he does that convicts him and makes him look guilty there. Lee told me that he wanted to ride home with me that evening. I was surprised, and I asked him if he was going home with me on Friday also, and he said no. He told me that he was going home to get curtain rods. Thursday afternoon, Lee rode to Irving with me to Ruth Payne's, where his wife is staying. I let him out of my car in front of Ruth's house. Then I went on. This morning, Friday, November 22nd, I got up 6 to 6:30 and got ready to go to work and then sit down to eat breakfast. About 7:15, me and my mother and my child, little sister, were at the table, and my sister was at the sink. My mother looked up and said, "Who is that looking in the window?" So Lee didn't even take a bath. He just came straight over to Leslie's house. I guess, why would you? Because you're carrying boxes and crap like that. Let's see. That's Lee. I got up and finished, got ready and got my lunch and went to the door and met Lee on the carport. We then walked to the car. It was parked back up at the side of the carport. Before I got in the car, I glanced to the back seat and saw a big sack. It must have been about 2 feet long, and the top of the sack was sort of folded up, and the rest of the sack had been kind of folded under. I asked Lee, now think about that. They didn't even glue the ends or tie the ends, so the rifle could just fall right out. How secure would that be? Again, why would you take this loose piece of paper when you were taking the rifle around in the blanket before riding the bus? Doesn't make any sense. And the top of the rack was sort of folded up, and the rest of the sack had been kind of folded under. I asked Lee what was in the sack, and he said curtain rods. And I remembered that he told me the day before that he was going to bring home curtain rods. We drove to work the same way that I usually go. We came into town on the Simmons Freeway to Maine, and Maine to Record, and then on across to McKinney, and by the warehouse to the parking lot. I parked the car and sat there a while and run the motor to charge the battery, and while I was doing that, Lee got out and opened the back door, got the package out of the back seat, and walked behind the car. Then I got cut of the car and started walking towards the building where I work. Continued. Next name, is that it? I think that's it. Mary Rattan. November 22nd, Wesley Frazier. So there it is, folks. And we'll get into other statements here. This one's done. I think this might be the same one. Yeah, this is the same statement, but it's more clear. I always like to read the original statement because sometimes people accidentally change things or on purpose change things. And so there must have been more of this. Yeah, here we go. There was more. Okay. I noticed that Lee had the package in his right hand under his arm, and the package was straight up. He kept up and down, and he had his arm down, and you could not see much of the package. When we started walking, Lee was just a few feet ahead of me, but he kept walking faster than me, and finally got way ahead of me. I saw him go in the back door of the loading dock of the building that we worked in, and still he had the package under his arm. I did not see him anymore for about 30 minutes, and then we were both working. Lee did not carry his lunch today. He told me this morning he was going to buy his lunch. I was standing on the front steps of the building when the parade came by, and I watched the parade go by. After the president had got out of my sight, I heard 3 shots. I stood there, and then people started running by, and I turned, went back into the building, got my lunch, and ate it. I did not see Lee anymore after about 11 a.m. that today, and at that time we were both working, and we were on the first floor. So think about it, that's kind of weird, isn't it? He doesn't mention that the shots came to the right in that statement, but he said he heard 3 shots. And then he also mentions that instead of, panicking and wondering what the hell happened, did the president get shot, he just goes back and eats his lunch. Isn't that kind of strange? Anyway, so very interesting about Wesley Frazier there, and we'll get into more of his statements tomorrow with the testimony he did before the Warren Commission. All right, take care. Have a good one.